Welcome to the Department Chair Leadership Podcast, where the goal is to improve organizations and serve students one leader at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Jochum. If you're a department chair in higher education or any type of educational leader, and you want to improve yourself to better serve and influence those you lead, you've come to the right place. Because the best way to improve an organization is to improve its leader. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. As always, just so grateful that you took some time out of your busy schedule to improve yourself and those you serve as a leader. This episode is a second part of a two-part series with Mr. Brad Black, current president and CEO of HUMANeX Ventures and a former Fortune 500 executive with both Stryker and Gallup. If you have not yet listened to part one, please stop this episode, go back to the previous episode and listen to that one first. It's full of great information and advice, especially as it relates to identifying talent and building teams. Brad's current book is titled Talent, Culture, and Teams, The X Factors of Excellence, which Jon Gordon calls a masterclass in organizational transformation, showcasing how a focus on talent and culture can propel teams to unparalleled success. The link to this and other ways to connect with and follow Brad are in the show notes. In part two, Brad continues to give a masterclass in leadership, especially with respect to how the top-tier organizations and cultures go after talent. Specific to higher education, he gives a wonderful first-hand example of his involvement with hiring a founding dean of a medical school and how he truly challenged the system and helped this organization go after the best leader. If you have listened to previous podcasts and or read my book, have heard me speak, if I've worked with you, I often say that leadership of any kind, that's the job. It's distinctly different than what you did before, and while the skills and experiences of in higher ed, a tenured professor are necessary to become a chair or dean. In the K-12 world, it's necessary to be a classroom teacher before becoming a principal, or then a principal before a superintendent. By itself, just serving in that job before is not sufficient. The best musician in the orchestra is not by default the best conductor, and vice versa. They are two different, albeit adjacent, I'll give you, but they are two different jobs. It takes a different skill set with different inherent talent. So, as you listen to this episode, think about a time in which you were either on a search committee or perhaps a candidate in a search that either got it right by going after the best leader, or perhaps got it wrong by assuming that the job before the job was the job they're hiring for. So again, here's part two with Brad Black.
Search firms, search committees bring us in, and there was one, it was the 11th hour, and it's a new medical school. So looking for the dean of a new medical school. And so, everybody that's sitting at the table represents, the hospitals, the university, and the students are sitting there because they want their opinions. It's like, great. And so I walk in and I said, I'm coming at the 11th hour, and I'm coming because, there's somebody who feels very, very strong that we need to get this right, and that we can't roll the dice on a founding dean. This can go really good or really bad based on what you guys do. So, you're making a very significant decision that could be generational, in terms of consequence. So let me take back to a meeting you had before I came, and tell me what you said when you said you're looking for a leader. And I look at everybody, and all of a sudden they're looking at their shoes. No one will make eye contact with me, and so I knew what I was doing. I knew they'd never had that conversation. I said, so you don't know what you're looking for. So but you'll know it when you see it, but you don't know what it looks, you don't know what you're looking for. I said, so I'm going to challenge you. And again, they knew where I came from. I'm going to challenge you that you don't know what you're looking for. You don't have a common language about what you're looking for. And we've got to create that. And then they shared, well, the rest of the story is 77 people applied. And we've already identified 20 semifinalists and fast track 5. I said, I'm out. I guarantee you, you do not have the right five. Well, that sounds pretty bold. I didn't meet these people, but I'm saying with certainty, you didn't get the right five. I said, so if you want this to go well, how about if we get the right five? If we did this together and I show you what we do, let us interview all 20 that you felt out of the 77 were worthy of the semifinal cut. And then I will show you the right five. And I will even go so far as to tell you out of the 20, the majority couldn't do that job. You've already cut the semifinalists, and I'm telling you, the majority of those semifinalists won't be able to do the job. So, the CMO at the hospital, chief medical officer, very smart guy, he said, guys, let's just admit this is not our day job. We don't know what we're doing. We all have opinions and somebody wants input, but let's listen to the expert. Let's have them go through empirical built research-based interviews to measure leader. We are looking for a leader, not the person who has the thickest resume, who did the most research. And frankly, that's what a bunch of the people in the 20 had, was thick resumes. Oh, great. We can all just put it on a scale and measure it. Wow, that's easy. That doesn't mean that's a leader. That might be a genius, researcher. We need a leader. In fact, I'll go one step further. You need George Washington. This is the founding dean. You don't just need a leader, you need George Washington. We're going to look for unique talents in the founding dean. And so measured it, came back. I showed them, on a PowerPoint, the graph, an ascending order of the 20 people measured. And that chief medical officer, remember what I said? He goes, you said the majority of the people couldn't do this job, that you would interview out of the semifinalists. I go, yes, that's right. And he said, so how many of the 20 couldn't do the job? I said, 60% could not do this job. Could not do this job. So, but what's fun is we're going to be here today to uncover the right five. So they only got 2 of the right 5, and the 3 that they didn't get, they're like, I won't go into details because it probably reveals some things, but they knocked him out of consideration for stupid, silly things. Like he wears a bow tie. Who cares? What's that got to do with leadership? Literally, it was just the silliest, stupid things that they knocked him out. And it's like, okay, but now I gave you the empirical evidence that you now with confidence can have universal consensus that I shared everything in the interview why you can't lose with these 5. Pick these 5, and then what the feedback to us was, you made our job so hard because they're all so good. Great, that's what we wanted. We wanted you to have 5 Olympians, and you can't screw this up. You pick the one that's their best fit, and everybody will be happy, and everybody's been set up for success. So I'll go back to that first point. You got to calibrate to what are we looking for? And I don't want to talk about the resume. I want to talk about the person. Tell me about this leader. What is it about this leader? And you'll find that people they lose their words because they don't know what they're looking for. Like maybe it has wings. Maybe, okay, are we looking for a bird? Looking for 4 legs or 2 wings or what? They don't know leader. There's not a common language of leadership. And so we've handicapped the world by not having a common language. And that's where, I want to be able to offer to you a leader 12 where you can go through your own, and we can give you feedback and going, what's inside me that makes me do what I do? Well, that's your talent. So we'll do that later, and we'll talk about that, where we'll add more definition, more granular level DNA that I can crosswalk when I talk about a PJ Fleck or a hospital president or a Fortune 500 CEO. I've had exposure with all those people, and I know the talents. But you're always looking for a leader. There's never. It's like I can't choose to not have an athlete if I'm playing sports. I can't just have the person who read the most books about the sport, but I have to also have an athlete. I have to have somebody with athletic ability, or it won't work. And that's the talent. That's a pure athlete is the best analogy to pure talent because I can't teach somebody to jump high and run fast and be strong. I can make them stronger, but you can't put in an athlete what they have in them. Same with, that great teacher, that great coach, that great leader, whatever profession. And there's some people have greatness for five things in them. That they could be a Notre Dame, the center on a national championship team at Notre Dame. And then they go to the NFL, and then they go to the Secret Service, and they go to Stryker, and then 8 jobs later, they're the president of Stryker. Yeah, same guy. His name's Tim Scannell. He's in the book. Um, it's a really, really cool story that a guy who wouldn't have even gotten an interview at Stryker retired as the president because we understood talent and we discovered his talent and we poured Miracle Grow on that redwood seed, for decades. And then he set up the next generation, and the next generation, the next generation. That well, we're just going to do what Brad did with Tim and Brady and Bill Inquist, and on and on. So you have to also develop the talent. That's also where people don't get it. Your job's not done when you selected them, or in the broader world, hired with hope. Your job just started. Yeah, you ran the 80-yard play, but you didn't get a touchdown. You have to keep developing them. You gotta, they gotta grow in the role. You want to grow the pipeline so you can continue to do this. You can't do it once and be called a success. It's got to be multiple generations, and then okay, it looks like this is going to be like a great place to live because I'll use Kalamazoo's example just because of the decades here that there's great deans, there's great superintendents, there's great leaders at Stryker. People have learned the talent offense from, decades that I've been here. But now we can do it in Omaha, Lincoln. We can do it in Northern Colorado. We can do it in Twin Cities. We can do it in Kansas City. We can do it in Dallas. We can do it in Atlanta. We're doing it all over the country.
When you have that conversation with a college president, and they say, but Brad, you don't understand. I'll use a medical school. We have to average so many millions of dollars in external funding a year. We need the best grant writer. Or Brad, you don't get it. Our football team has been terrible for 20 years. If we don't have a superintendent that understands how to block a 3 technique against a 50 front when we run the veer, if you've heard that, which I've been in higher ed long enough, I know that happens all the time in higher ed. What's your response?
Yeah, the response is I go back to that question again about, well, tell me about, or do you need a leader or do you need somebody who knows the X's and O's of the job? And tell me if you find somebody who knows the X's and O's of the job, but they're not a leader, how that's going to work. So, give them back a question and find out how literate they are and how open they are. Because, you can't convince somebody who doesn't want to learn and knows it all. I got to find somebody who's going to be at least, intellectually honest and curious to listen to something that they don't know. And obviously I have an advantage with I can give them a Jim Collins book and I can give them a community capitalism book. I can give them our book. And so I have an advantage with credibility across 4 continents, across industry over 4 decades. And, I can pretty quickly tell whether they want to learn and find out the truth, or they want to protect the status quo and the mindset that they have. And that really is kind of a fork on the road conversation. It's like, you either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. It's almost like here's a test. Growth mindset will always explore better, new, innovation, continuous improvement. Somebody is doing it. We need to learn. Fixed mindset is protecting the way it's always been, the way it is. And that's not a world where people win. It's not. So then I usually say, well, that would be like a Sears and Kmart and BlackBerry and oh yeah, those companies don't exist anymore. Or do you want to be like the Strykers? Do you want to be like the Teslas? Do you want to be the SpaceX? Do you want to be and I can go into education or wherever else and go, we work with 7 #1 school districts in the nation. Do you want to be like Minnetonka? Do you want to be like Indian Hill? You want to be like Novi? Yeah? Okay, this is what they do. Okay. So I come back into their profession or as close to their profession as I can find, and I highlight the ones who have a track record with results going, they're doing something different. They're not doing what the majority does. And again, I'll take them back to the Jim Collins. I said, do you realize between good to great and great by choice, there was almost 22,000 companies studied and only 18 made the final cut? So we're not finding common. We're not finding majority. You have to be open to looking for exceptional. We're looking for the Alabamas in football. We're looking for the Nebraskas in volleyball. We're looking for the UCLA, the Woodens. That's got to be your model. And it really is kind of a test of the leaders. Are they open to learning?
Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to part 2, and hopefully before that, part 1. I think you can see now why I truly consider that a 2-part masterclass in leadership. Can't thank Brad enough. Such a generous and humble person. Obviously, you can see what's made him a great leader. As he said, he's worked with actual U.S. presidents, worked with Dr. Clifton, the person that designed the Clifton Strengths survey, worked with Jim Collins, not only been a Fortune 500 executive, but he's also trained and recruited leaders on 4 continents for 4 decades. And so I really hope that a few main takeaways is just understanding that as leaders, we need to go after talent, and we need to define that. And it underscores that when we are looking for leaders, that it's a different job than the one right before it. There's that last job that somebody takes before they become the official titled leader. And while that's necessary, it isn't by itself sufficient. And so whether you are hiring for your team or you might be a committee member, please keep this in mind. Ask yourselves, what does the best person look like? You're never going to get somebody that can do all of the jobs that, this didn't happen under the previous leader, so the next one needs to do all these things. Well, one human can only do so much from their office in 8 hours. But what they can do is they can get the right people, form a culture, climate, build relationships where the right people want to do the right things and collectively move the organization forward. So as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. If you want to learn more about my leadership philosophy and how to be an effective chair, please consider my book, The Department Chair, A Practical Guide to Effective Leadership. You can find this and learn more about me by going to cjleadership.com. Also, please be sure to like this podcast, leave a review, and share with your colleagues. Thanks again for improving your organization and those you serve by improving yourself. Take care.